Kira Night Whisper pressed her face against the cold metal wall of the engineering deck and listened carefully. The corridors of Haven's Rest Station were quiet now. Most of the crew had gone to sleep hours ago. This was her time. The only time. She could work without hearing whispers and cruel laughter behind her back. She moved through the empty hallways like a shadow. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The station hummed around her with the steady rhythm of machines that never slept. Kira knew every sound by heart. She had been working here for 3 years now, 3 long years of hiding in the shadows and working alone. The wormhole stabilization chamber was her domain. Nobody else understood the complex systems like she did. The massive blue crystals that powered the wormhole generator needed constant care. They sang with energy that could tear holes in space itself. Other engineers found the work too dangerous or too difficult, but Kira loved it here. The crystals did not judge her. They did not care what she looked like. She knelt beside the main stabilizer and opened her toolkit. Her hands moved with practiced skill as she adjusted the energy flow patterns. The work required perfect timing and deep knowledge of quantum mechanics. One mistake could destroy half the station. But Kira never made mistakes with her work. Her work was the only thing that made her feel valuable. The reflection in the crystal surface showed her face clearly. Dark hair with strange silver streaks that had appeared when she was just a child. Amber eyes that glowed in the dim light. Ears that were pointed but not quite right according to elven standards. Her people called her broken. Malformed. A mistake of nature. Kira closed her eyes and tried to push away the memories, but they always came back when she was alone. She remembered being 7 years old on the elven homeworld. The other children had surrounded her in the schoolyard. They had pointed at her ears and laughed until she cried. They called her the broken one, the failed elf, the one who should never have been born. Her own parents had looked at her with disappointment. They tried to fix her with medicine and surgery. When nothing worked, they sent her away to live with distant relatives. Nobody wanted to claim responsibility for the strange child who did not look like a proper elf. The sound of footsteps in the corridor made Kira freeze. Someone was coming. She quickly gathered her tools and moved to hide behind one of the large power converters. Her heart pounded as she waited in the darkness. 2 voices echoed through the chamber. Kira recognized them as crew members from the navigation department, a Krillian male named Voss, and a female from the bird-like Talari species called Scree. "Did you see that freak in the mess hall today?" Voss said with a harsh laugh. "She tried to sit at our table again." "The broken elf," Scree replied. Her voice had the musical quality that all Talari possessed, but her words were ugly. "I heard she was kicked out of her own family for being so hideous. Commander Zara should transfer her to some remote outpost. Nobody wants to look at that thing during meals. Those weird eyes and that awful hair makes me sick." Kira pressed herself deeper into the shadows. The words cut through her like knives. She had heard similar things countless times before, but it never stopped hurting. She waited until the voices faded away before emerging from her hiding place. The crystal stabilizers needed more work, but Kira could not focus anymore. The cruel words echoed in her mind. She packed up her tools and headed back to her quarters. The corridors seemed longer and colder than usual. Her room was small and plain. She had no personal decorations or pictures. What was the point of making a place feel like home when you did not belong anywhere? Kira sat on her narrow bed and stared at her reflection in the blank computer screen. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was a mistake that should never have happened. The elves were known throughout the galaxy for their beauty and grace. They had perfect features and flowing hair and eyes like jewels. Kira had none of these things. She was a broken reflection of what an elf should be. The communication panel on her desk beeped softly. A message had arrived from the engineering department. Kira opened it and read the work assignment for tomorrow. The wormhole generator needed a complete overhaul. It was dangerous work that would take several days to complete. Good. Dangerous work meant she could stay in the depths of the engineering section, away from the mess halls and recreation areas where the other crew members gathered, away from the stares and whispers and cruel laughter. Kira changed into her sleeping clothes and lay down on the hard mattress. Through the small window, she could see stars scattered across the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, was the elven homeworld where she had been born. Somewhere out there were billions of beautiful elves living perfect lives. She wondered if things would have been different if she had been born human or Krillian or Talari, but probably not. Every species seemed to have standards of beauty that she could never meet. She was destined to be an outsider no matter where she went. The stations. Night cycle dimmed the lights automatically. Kira closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring another day of hiding in the shadows, another day of pretending that the words did not hurt, another day of being the broken one that nobody wanted around. But in her dreams, she was beautiful. In her dreams, she belonged somewhere. In her dreams, someone looked at her with kindness instead of disgust. When she woke up, the dreams would fade away like morning mist. But for now, she could pretend that somewhere in the universe, there was a place for someone like her. The morning shift brought new faces to Haven's Rest Station. Kira watched from the engineering deck as a transport ship docked with the main port. She could see through the observation windows as passengers walked down the boarding ramp. Most were familiar species that she had seen many times before. But one figure caught her attention. A human woman stepped off the ship carrying a large equipment case. She had brown hair tied back in a simple style and wore the blue uniform of a science officer. Humans were rare on the station. Most species found them too emotional and unpredictable for serious research work. But this one moved with confidence as she spoke with Commander Zara at the docking bay. Kira turned away from the window and went back to her work. New arrivals always meant changes, and changes usually made life harder for her. She hoped this human would stay in the science sections and leave the engineering areas alone. The wormhole generator hummed with dangerous energy as Kira checked each connection point. The massive machine filled most of the lower engineering deck. It could open doorways across the galaxy in seconds, but it needed constant maintenance to prevent catastrophic failures. The work required someone who understood both quantum physics and mechanical engineering. Someone who could work alone in dangerous conditions. "Excuse me?" Kira jumped and spun around. The human woman from the transport ship stood at the entrance to the chamber. Up close, she looked younger than Kira had first thought. Maybe 30. Years old with kind eyes and a curious expression. "I am sorry to bother you," the human said. "I am Dr. Maya Bell. I was looking for the engineer in charge of the wormhole systems." Kira felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She pulled her hair forward to hide her face and looked down at the floor. "That would be me. But I am very busy right now. Maybe you could come back later." "Actually, this is perfect timing. I wanted to ask you about the stabilization improvements you made last month. The efficiency reports show a 15% increase in power output. That is remarkable work." Kira looked up in surprise. Nobody had ever complimented her engineering before. Most people only noticed her work when something went wrong. "You read my reports?" "Of course. I am here to study wormhole mechanics for my research project. Your modifications to the crystal alignment matrix are brilliant. I have never seen anything like it in the literature." Maya stepped closer to examine the control panels. Kira, instinctively, moved away and tried to keep her distance. She was not used to anyone showing genuine interest in her work. "The standard configuration creates harmonic resonance issues," Kira said quietly. "I redesigned the frequency patterns to eliminate the interference. It was not that difficult." "Not that difficult," Maya laughed. "You solved a problem that has been stumping engineers for decades. The Galactic Engineering Council has been trying to improve wormhole efficiency for years, and you just figured it out on your own." Kira felt a strange warmth in her chest. Nobody had ever spoken to her this way before, like her work actually mattered, like she was worth listening to. "Would you mind showing me how the new system works?" Maya asked. "I promise I will not get in your way. I just want to understand the principles behind your design." For the next 2 hours, Kira found herself explaining her modifications in detail. Maya asked intelligent questions and took careful notes. She seemed genuinely fascinated by the technical details. More importantly, she never once stared at Kira's face or made comments about her appearance. "This is incredible," Maya said as she studied the energy flow diagrams. "You have essentially created a new branch of quantum engineering. Have you published any papers on this work?" Kira shook her head. Nobody would read papers written by someone like me. The engineering journals only accept work from respected researchers. Someone like you, Maya repeated with a puzzled expression. You mean someone brilliant who makes groundbreaking discoveries. I think you underestimate your abilities. Before Kira could respond, the chamber doors opened again. Lieutenant Jake Morrison walked in wearing the red uniform of station security. He was another human with an easy smile and friendly manner. There you are, Maya, he said. I have been looking everywhere for you, ready for the grand tour of the station. Jake, this is Kira Nightwhisper. She is the engineering genius I was telling you about. Kira, this is my friend, Jake Morrison. Jake extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Nice to meet you, Kira. Maya has been talking about your work non-stop since she read the technical reports. Kira hesitated before shaking his hand. Physical contact with strangers made her uncomfortable. But Jake's grip was gentle and brief. We should let you get back to your work, Maya said. But would it be possible to continue our discussion later? Maybe over dinner in the mess hall? The suggestion made Kira's stomach clench with anxiety. The mess hall was where all the crew members gathered, where she heard the whispers and cruel comments about her appearance, where she tried to eat quickly and leave before anyone noticed her. I usually eat in my quarters, Kira said. The mess hall gets very crowded. That is fine. We could meet in one of the conference rooms instead, or wherever you feel comfortable. Maya's offer was tempting, but Kira knew it was dangerous. People who seemed kind at first often changed their minds once they got to know her better, once they realized how broken and wrong she was. Maybe, Kira said without making any promises. I should get back to work now. Of course. Thank you for taking the time to explain everything. Your work is truly impressive. Maya and Jake left the chamber together. Kira could hear them talking as they walked down the corridor. She expected to hear Jake warning Maya about the strange elf engineer, expected him to tell her to stay away from the freak that everyone avoided. But instead she heard Maya saying, She is amazing, Jake. Absolutely. Brilliant. I cannot believe she is working alone down here. She should be leading a research team at the Galactic Institute. Kira stood frozen by the doorway. Nobody had ever called her amazing before. Nobody had ever suggested that she deserved recognition or respect. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to work with people who valued her mind instead of judging her appearance. But the moment passed quickly. Maya was new to the station. She had not heard the stories about the broken elf yet. Give it a few days and she would learn to avoid Kira like everyone else did. Still, as Kira returned to her work, she found herself thinking about Maya's kind words. For the first time in years, someone had looked at her engineering and seen something worth praising. Someone had treated her like a real person, instead of a mistake that should be hidden away. Maybe it would not last. Maybe Maya would change her mind once she learned the truth about Kira's past. But for now it felt good to be seen as something other than a failure, even if it was just for one afternoon. The transport ship arrived 3 days later carrying Dr. Thane Silverpeak and his research team. Kira felt her blood turn cold when she saw his name on the passenger manifest. Thane was one of the most respected elven scientists in the galaxy. He was also someone from her past that she had hoped never to see again. She tried to stay hidden in the engineering sections, but word spread quickly through the station. Dr. Silverpeak had come to oversee a joint research project on advanced wormhole technology. He would be working directly with the engineering staff for the next 2 weeks. Kira kept her head down and focused on her work. Maybe she could avoid him completely. The station was large and she knew all the back corridors and maintenance passages. If she was careful, she might never cross paths with the famous scientist. Her plan worked for exactly 6 hours. She was running diagnostics on the secondary power systems when footsteps echoed through the chamber. Kira looked up to see Dr. Silverpeak, standing in the doorway with 2 junior scientists behind him. He looked exactly the same as she remembered. Tall and elegant, with flowing silver hair and perfect elven features. The kind of elf that appeared in paintings and sculptures. Well, well, Thane said with a cold smile. Look what we have here. Little Kira Darkblood hiding in the shadows where she belongs. The name hit her like a physical blow. Darkblood. The cruel nickname he had given her as a child because of her strange coloring. She had not heard it in years, but it still carried the power to make her feel small and worthless. Dr. Silverpeak, she managed to say. "I did not know you were coming to the station." "Obviously not, or you would have found somewhere else to hide." "Tell me, Kira, are you still pretending to be an engineer, still playing with machines because real people find you too disturbing to be around?" The two junior scientists laughed at his words. They were young and beautiful, like all proper elves. Their eyes held the same mixture of disgust and amusement that Kira remembered from her childhood. "I am the chief engineer for the wormhole systems," Kira said quietly. "I have been working here for 3 years." "Chief engineer," Thane repeated, with mock surprise. "They must be truly desperate to give such an important position to a failed experiment like you. I suppose when you live in exile, any job will do." Maya Bell chose that moment to enter the chamber. She carried a data pad and looked excited about something. But her expression changed when she saw the tension in the room. "Kira, I have been looking for you," Maya said. "I wanted to show you the latest test results from your stabilizer modifications. The improvement in efficiency is even better than we calculated." Thane turned to look at Maya with obvious interest. His cruel smile grew wider as he realized he had found a new audience for his performance. "You must be the human scientist I heard about," he said in his most charming voice. "Dr. Bell, is it not? I am Dr. Thane Silverpeak from the Elven Science Academy. I feel I should warn you about associating too closely with this creature. She has quite a disturbing history." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Creature. That is an interesting way to describe the most talented engineer on this station." "Talented," Thane laughed. "Is that what she told you?" "My dear doctor, this pathetic being was expelled from the Elven Academy for academic fraud. She tried to steal research from her betters and claim it as her own work." The lie hit Kira like a punch to the stomach. She had never stolen anything. She had been forced to leave the academy because the other students made her life unbearable, because professors refused to work with someone who looked like her. "That is not true," Kira whispered. "Of course it is true," Thane continued. "Look at her. Does this broken creature look like someone capable of original research? She is a mistake of nature, an embarrassment to elvenkind. The fact that she is allowed to work on critical systems is a danger to everyone on this station." Maya stepped forward with anger flashing in her eyes. "That is enough. I do not know what your problem is, Dr. Silverpeak, but your behavior is completely inappropriate." "My problem," Thane said, "is seeing good people like yourself being deceived by this fraud. She will steal your research and claim credit for your discoveries. It is what her kind does when they cannot create anything of value themselves." The chamber filled with more people as word of the confrontation spread. Crew members gathered in the doorway to watch the drama unfold. Kira could see the expressions on their faces. Some looked uncomfortable, but none of them spoke up to defend her. "Show them the truth, Kira," Thane said with vicious satisfaction. "Tell Dr. Bell about your real academic record. Tell her about the disciplinary hearings and the plagiarism charges. Tell her why your own family disowned you." Kira felt the walls closing in around her. Every eye in the room was focused on her, waiting for her to defend herself, waiting for her to prove that she was not the fraud that Thane claimed she was. But the words would not come. The old shame and self-doubt crashed over her like a tidal wave. Maybe Thane was right. Maybe she was just a broken creature pretending to be something she was not. Her hands shook as she tried to adjust a control panel. The simple task that she had performed thousands of times suddenly seemed impossible. The numbers on the display blurred together as tears filled her eyes. The alarm sounded exactly 30 seconds later. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber as the wormhole generator began to overload. Kira had made a critical error in the stabilization sequence, the kind of mistake that could tear the station apart if not corrected immediately. "Emergency shutdown," someone shouted. "All personnel evacuate the engineering section." Kira stared at the control panel in horror. She had never made such a basic mistake before. Never put the station in danger because of her emotions. The crew members ran for the exits as emergency systems activated throughout the chamber. "You see?" Thane said calmly as he stepped toward the door. "This is what happens when you trust important work to damaged goods. She is not just ugly, she is dangerous." Maya started to say something, but Thane cut her off. "Come, Doctor. Let the real Engineers handle this crisis. Some problems cannot be solved by being kind to freaks. The chamber emptied quickly, leaving Kira alone with the screaming alarms and flashing lights. She worked frantically to stabilize the overloading systems. Her training took over as she isolated the affected circuits and rerouted power through backup channels. It took 20 minutes to bring everything back under control. 20 minutes of precise work while fighting back tears and self-doubt. When the alarms finally stopped, the silence felt deafening. Kira slumped against the control panel and closed her eyes. She had saved the station, but the damage to her reputation was complete. Everyone had seen her break down under pressure. Everyone had heard Thane expose her as a fraud and a failure. There was no coming back from this. No way to rebuild the small amount of respect she had earned through years of careful work. She was once again the broken elf that nobody wanted around, the broken elf who put everyone in danger because she could not handle the truth about herself. Maya Bell sat in her quarters staring at her computer screen. She had been researching elven culture and society for the past 6 hours. What she found made her sick to her stomach. The elven concept of beauty was rigid and unforgiving. They prized specific combinations of hair color, eye color, and facial features. Anyone who did not meet these exact standards was considered defective. The more she read, the more she understood what Kira had endured her entire life. According to the cultural database, elves with silver-streaked hair and amber eyes were extremely rare. These traits appeared in less than 1% of the population. In ancient times, such individuals had been considered blessed by the gods. They were often chosen as leaders and spiritual guides, but modern elven society had rejected these old beliefs. Now anyone who looked different was treated as a genetic mistake. They were hidden away or sent into exile to prevent embarrassment to their families. Maya thought about Dr. Thane Silverpeak and his cruel words in the engineering chamber. His accusations of academic fraud and theft made no sense. She had read every paper published on wormhole technology in the past 5 years. Kira's innovations were completely original. No one else in the galaxy had even attempted the modifications she had developed. A soft chime indicated someone was at her door. Maya opened it to find Jake Morrison holding 2 cups of coffee. "You missed dinner," he said as he stepped into her quarters. "I thought you might need some caffeine while you work on whatever has you so focused." "Jake, what do you know about the incident in engineering today?" Maya asked as she accepted the coffee gratefully. "Not much. There was some kind of system overload, but it got fixed pretty quickly." "Why do you ask?" Maya told him about the confrontation between Kira and Dr. Silverpeak. She described the cruel accusations and the way the entire crew had stood by and watched without intervening. "That is horrible," Jake said when she finished, "but I am not surprised. I have heard people talking about Kira since I arrived. They say she is antisocial and difficult to work with. Have you ever actually seen her be antisocial or difficult?" Jake paused to think about the question. "No, I guess not. She seems quiet and shy more than anything else. But people say she keeps to herself and avoids social situations." "Maybe she avoids social situations because people treat her badly," Maya suggested. "Maybe she keeps to herself because she has learned that other people will hurt her if she gets too close." "You think Dr. Silverpeak was lying about her academic record?" "I know he was lying. I looked up Kira's educational background. She graduated top of her class from the Elven Technical Institute. She never had any disciplinary problems or plagiarism charges. In fact, her professors wrote glowing recommendation letters describing her as one of the most gifted students they had ever taught." Jake sat down heavily in one of the chairs. "So why did everyone believe what Silverpeak said? Why did no one defend her?" "Because she looks different. Because Elven society has taught everyone that people like Kira are worthless and broken. And because we let bullies get away with cruelty when we stand by and do nothing." Maya pulled up another file on her computer. It showed genetic analysis of elven bloodlines dating back thousands of years. "Look at this, Jake. Kira's unusual features are not defects. They are markers of ancient royal bloodlines. She is probably descended from elven nobility." "The irony is incredible," Jake said. "The people treating her like trash are probably her genetic inferiors by their own standards." "It gets worse. I talked to Chief Petty Officer Lisa Park after the incident today. She told me that several crew members have been deliberately sabotaging Kira's work for months, making small changes to her equipment settings, causing minor failures that make her look incompetent. That is criminal." Someone could have been killed if those sabotage attempts had caused a major system failure. Maya nodded grimly. Lisa said she tried to report it to Commander Zara, but was told not to get involved in personnel disputes. Apparently, the command staff thinks Kira brings these problems on herself by being difficult to work with. We have to do something, Jake said. We cannot let this continue. I'm going to talk to Captain Turner tomorrow. He is the senior human officer on the station. Maybe he will listen to reason. Maya spent the rest of the evening compiling evidence. She gathered Kira's academic records, technical reports, and performance evaluations. Everything painted the same picture. Kira was a brilliant engineer who had been systematically discriminated against because of her appearance. The next morning, Maya requested a meeting with Captain Ross Turner. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and kind eyes. His office was decorated with pictures of Earth and various human colonies. "Dr. Bell," he said as she entered, "what can I do for you today?" Maya presented her findings in a clear, organized manner. She showed him the evidence of sabotage, the lies about Kira's academic record, and the pattern of discrimination that had followed her throughout her career. Captain Turner listened carefully without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair with a thoughtful expression. "This is not the first time I have heard concerns about how certain crew members are treated on this station," he said finally. "The truth is that humans were specifically requested for this assignment because of our reputation for working with difficult individuals. Difficult individuals. People that other species have given up on. The outcasts and misfits who do not fit into their society's expectations. Command knows that humans have a talent for seeing potential where others see only problems." Maya felt a surge of pride in her species. "So, you believe me about Kira?" "I have been watching her work for 3 years, Dr. Bell. I know exactly how talented she is. I also know how the other crew members treat her. I have been looking for an excuse to transfer her to a better situation." "What kind of better situation?" Captain Turner smiled. "There is a position opening at the Earth Xenotechnology Institute. They need someone with expertise in wormhole systems for a classified research project. The pay is excellent, and she would be working with humans who judge people by their abilities, not their appearance." "Does Kira know about this opportunity?" "Not yet. I wanted to wait until I was sure she would accept the transfer. She has been hurt so many times that she does not trust easily, but maybe if the recommendation came from someone she respects, someone like you." Maya felt a warm glow in her chest. This was exactly what Kira needed. A chance to work somewhere that valued her mind instead of judging her appearance. A chance to finally belong somewhere. "There is something else, Captain," Turner said. "I'm going to launch a formal investigation into the sabotage incidents. If we can prove deliberate interference with critical systems, there will be serious consequences for everyone involved, including Dr. Silverpeak. Especially Dr. Silverpeak. His behavior yesterday was completely unacceptable. No one should be allowed to publicly humiliate a fellow officer like that." Maya left the meeting feeling hopeful for the first time since the incident in engineering. But now came the hard part. She had to find Kira and convince her to trust again. She had to help her see that not everyone in the universe was determined to hurt her. She had to show Kira what humans saw when they looked at her. Not a broken creature or a genetic mistake, but a brilliant, beautiful person who deserved respect and kindness. Kira stood at the observation deck window staring out at the stars. She held a datapad containing her resignation letter in her hands. After 3 days of isolation and self-doubt, she had finally made her decision. It was time to leave Haven's rest station and find somewhere else to hide. The past 72 hours had been the worst of her life. Word of her breakdown in engineering had spread throughout the station. Crew members whispered and pointed whenever. She walked through the corridors. Some looked at her with pity, which was almost worse than the usual disgust. She had tried to continue her work, but her confidence was shattered. Every adjustment she made to the wormhole systems felt wrong. Every calculation seemed suspect. The voice in her head kept repeating Dr. Silverpeak's words about fraud and incompetence. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had been fooling herself all these years. Maybe her engineering skills were not as good as she thought. The system overload had been proof of her limitations. When faced with real pressure, she had cracked like a cheap crystal. "I thought I might find you here." Kira turned to see Maya Bell approaching from the entrance. The human woman looked tired, as if she had not been sleeping well. She carried a cup of tea and a folder full of documents. "Dr. Bell," Kira said formally, "I did not expect to see you again." "Why would you think that?" Maya asked as she joined Kira at the window. "Because now you know the truth about me. You heard what Dr. Silverpeak said. You saw me break down and nearly destroy the station." Maya was quiet for a long moment. She sipped her tea and watched the stars spin slowly past the observation window. When she finally spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "Kira, I need to tell you something important. Dr. Silverpeak lied about everything. Every single accusation he made was false." Kira felt her stomach twist with confusion. "What do you mean, false?" Maya opened her folder and pulled out several documents. "I researched your academic record at the Elven Technical Institute. You graduated with highest honors. Your professors described you as one of the most gifted students in the history of the program. There were never any plagiarism charges or disciplinary actions." The words hit Kira like a physical blow. She stared at the official transcripts and recommendation letters that Maya spread out on the window ledge. Her hands shook as she read the glowing comments from professors she had not thought about in years. "But why would he lie?" she whispered. "Because he is a cruel person who enjoys hurting others. Because Elven society has taught him that people who look different are acceptable targets for abuse. Because he is threatened by your abilities and wants to destroy your confidence." Maya pulled out another document. This one showed genetic analysis and historical records dating back centuries. "There is something else you need to know. Those features that everyone calls defects are actually markers of ancient Elven royal bloodlines. You are not broken, Kira. You are descended from the nobility that once ruled the Elven homeworld." Kira felt the world spinning around her. Everything she had been taught about herself was wrong. The silver in her hair and the amber of her eyes were not signs of genetic failure. They were indicators of a bloodline so ancient and noble that most elves had forgotten it ever existed. "I also discovered that several crew members have been sabotaging your work for months," Maya continued. "Chief Petty Officer Lisa Park witnessed them making unauthorized changes to your equipment. The system overload was not caused by your mistake. It was caused by their interference." The revelation hit Kira like a thunderbolt. She had not failed under pressure. She had been deliberately undermined by people who wanted to see her humiliated. The guilt and shame that had been eating at her for days suddenly transformed into anger. "They have been sabotaging me this whole time," she said, with growing fury. "Making me look incompetent so they could feel superior. Captain Turner is launching a formal investigation. Everyone involved will face serious consequences, including Dr. Silverpeak." Maya pulled out one final document. This one had official letterhead from the Earth Xenotechnology Institute. "There is a position available at the premier research facility on Earth. They need an expert in wormhole technology for a classified project. The pay is excellent, and you would be working with humans who judge people by their abilities, not their appearance." Kira stared at the job offer in disbelief. It was everything she had ever dreamed of. A chance to work with cutting-edge technology. A chance to be valued for her mind instead of judged for her looks. A chance to finally belong somewhere. "Why? Are you doing this for me?" she asked with tears in her eyes. Maya smiled and reached out to gently touch Kira's shoulder. "Because when I look at you, I do not see a broken creature or a genetic mistake. I see someone brilliant and talented who has been treated horribly by people who should have known better. But I am not beautiful like other elves. My features are all wrong. Your features are not wrong. They are different, and different can be incredibly beautiful if you have the right perspective." Maya paused and looked directly into Kira's amber eyes. Her next words were spoken with absolute sincerity and conviction. "Kira, Night Whisper, you are not just brilliant. You are beautiful inside and out. Anyone who cannot see that is blind." Kira froze completely. The words echoed in her mind like a bell ringing in an empty cathedral. Beautiful. Someone had called her beautiful. Not as a joke or a lie, but with genuine conviction. For her entire life, she had been told she was broken, defective, a mistake that should be hidden away. But this human woman looked at her and saw beauty, saw value, saw someone worth defending and protecting. "I have never," Kira whispered through her tears. "No one has ever said that to me before." "Then they were all fools. Maya said firmly. Beauty is not about meeting some arbitrary standard set by society. Beauty is about being unique and authentic and true to yourself. You are one of the most beautiful people I have ever met. The observation deck doors opened, and Jake Morrison entered, followed by Captain Turner and several other human crew members. They formed a circle around Kira and Maya with expressions of support and solidarity. We wanted you to know that we stand with you, Captain Turner said. The investigation has already produced enough evidence to bring formal charges against Dr. Silverpeak and his co-conspirators. More importantly, Jake added, we want you to know that not everyone on this station judges people by their appearance. The human crew members have nothing but respect for your abilities and your character. Lisa Park stepped forward with tears in her eyes. I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. I was afraid of causing trouble, but I should have protected you from those bullies. One by one, the humans expressed their support and admiration. They told Kira about conversations they had overheard where crew members praised her engineering skills. They shared stories of times when her innovations had saved lives and prevented disasters. For the first time in her life, Kira felt surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her. People who saw her as valuable and worthy of respect. People who looked at her and saw beauty instead of brokenness. Will you consider the position on Earth? Captain Turner asked. I think you would find the environment much more welcoming than what you have experienced here. Kira looked around at the circle of kind faces. These humans had shown her something she had never experienced before: acceptance, appreciation, the belief that she had value as a person. Yes, she said with growing confidence. I would like to accept the position. Maya smiled and handed her the official transfer documents. There is a transport leaving for Earth next week. You can start your new life whenever you are ready. That night, Kira stood in her quarters looking at herself in the mirror. For the first time in her life, she tried to see what Maya saw when she looked at her. The silver streaks in her dark hair caught the light like threads of starlight. Her amber eyes glowed with intelligence and determination. Her pointed ears were elegant and graceful. She was not broken. She was not a mistake. She was Kira Night Whisper, descendant of ancient nobility and one of the most gifted engineers in the galaxy. She was someone who deserved respect and kindness and love. Beautiful, she whispered to her reflection. For the first time in her life, she almost believed it was true. The humans had given her something more precious than a new job or a fresh start. They had given her the ability to see herself through eyes that valued difference instead of condemning it. They had shown her what it meant to belong somewhere. Tomorrow she would begin preparing for her new life on Earth. But tonight, she would stand in front of the mirror and practice believing that she was beautiful. Practice seeing herself the way humans saw her. Practice being the person she had always been but never been allowed to become.